Does tofu make the best McChicken sandwich? Let's find out. First, we want to start with 2 blocks of tofu drained. We need less liquid in this tofu, and that's why I'm going to squeeze it extra hard. Whoops, that was a little too hard, a little accident here, but that's okay. It's no big deal because all in all, this is just going to get broken up anyways. Now, I know I said stop pressing tofu, but that was only just for cooking tofu how it is. We need this to be pretty dry to work as a chicken patty. Now, after about 15 minutes of each one being pressed, we're going to toss these into a bowl and start with a 1/4 cup of gluten. That's going to be a lot of the texture of this chicken. There isn't a replacement for this one. It's needed here. And we also need 1.5 tablespoons of methyl cellulose. It's one of my favorite ingredients. Now, just like the last video, which was the jackfruit nuggets, where I described how corn is used in wallpaper paste, glues, textiles, and many other commercial products, I hope to not see any comments about how methyl cellulose is used in laxatives, because so is chocolate, and that's not stopping you from shoving that in your face. Now, for flavor, chicken is pretty mild, so we're just going to be adding in about a tablespoon of nutritional yeast and a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, I'm going to give that a mix, and I'm going to get in there and mix it by hand for at least a minute or two. I'm kind of kneading the gluten to create some gluten strands. We're going to make this pretty dense. Once we have a fairly dense mixture and the kneading created some of those gluten bonds, I'm then going to add about a 1/2 teaspoon of olive oil and mix that up. Then we're going to jump right into turning these into patties, and hopefully by this point you jump right over to the subscribe and share button, but we'll see. So this should create about 8 patties, and you'll want to make these about the size of a McChicken patty, so pretty thin actually. For some reason, no matter how long I've been doing this, I am unable to judge size. That's at all. I just cannot do it. I make giant nuggets and for some reason large patties. I've heard that's a problem for some people. Now, as we're making these, we're going to form them into patties, dip them directly into some cornstarch. That's going to kind of help dry them off and get them ready for their batter, and then just toss them onto a lined baking sheet. I'm using just a sill pad. Now, I'm going to use a ring mold just to get these into nicer circle shapes than what I've created. I can use the extra to create another patty. And as you could see here and from that intro shot, I've made these way too thick, and we ended up only getting 7 patties out of these. There should have been 8 with some extra. So at this point, I'm going to dump the remaining starch into another bowl. I'm going to let these rest for about 10 minutes, which is plenty of time for me to fall asleep because of Beam, today's sponsor. I know if I don't get enough sleep, my day is a nightmare. I'm groggy, tired, exhausted. I'm sure it's happened to you. Not enough sleep can ruin any day. And for me, there just happens to be certain times a year where just no matter what I do, I can't get enough sleep. And that happens to be springtime when the time changes. But not anymore, and that's because of Dream. Dream Powder is a delicious hot cocoa before bedtime. It contains ingredients such as L-theanine, magnesium, melatonin, nano CBD, and reishi to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. And Dream Powder comes in different flavors and potencies, so you can customize it for your lifestyle. It contains no added sugar, it's vegan, and it's really tasty. In their clinical study, most participants reported that Dream helped them get a more restful night's sleep and wake up more refreshed, more physically and psychologically rested, and less stressed. And all of that seems to be true for me. Like I said, every spring comes around, the time changes, and it takes me weeks to get back on a normal schedule to where I feel like I can get good sleep. I've been using Dream Powder for the last few weeks, and I'll tell you that I have been getting a full night's sleep. My watch shows me I'm immediately feeling the difference. So gang, click the link in the description below and use my code Saucestache to get 35% off your first order when you subscribe and 20% off all following orders. Plus, when you subscribe to Dream Powder, you're gonna get a free frother with your first order. You can pause, skip, or cancel at any time, so there is no risk. Beam, thanks for sponsoring today's video and for the better night's sleep. I have been feeling refreshed. Okay, we're back. So that didn't even feel like 10 minutes, did it? So now that these have rested, we can get started with our wet batter. I'm not sure if this is McDonald's recipe, but this feels like a good combination of what I know about their chicken nuggets and what seemed like a good sandwich recipe. We're gonna start with the remaining starch, which was about a 1/2 cup, along with about a 1/2 cup of flour, a tablespoon of mustard powder, which ended up being way too much, about a teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder or onion chunk, depending on the humidity and age of your seasoning, a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and the tiniest pinches of
MSG.
just to get the comments. Now I'm going to whisk that up to mix up the powders, and then we're going to start adding coconut milk until it's nice and thick and sticks to a spoon, kind of like a thick pancake batter. And then lastly, we just need to add about a teaspoon of olive oil. Now I'm just going to whisk that together, and then we need to dip our patties into the batter, and I'm going to toss them onto a lined baking sheet, the same one that I was using before, and then just throw them in the freezer for about an hour, or if it gets too late, the day after. Now I'm going to check and see how they're doing and realize that they completely shifted and slid into each other, creating a complete mess. I have to separate them and try to fix the batter as best as I can, and then just throw them back in the freezer for the next day. So tomorrow's here, and honestly these worked out great for lunch, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'm going to fill a high-walled frying pan with some oil, bring it up to temp around 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once we get the temp up to heat, I'm tossing these in 2 at a time, making sure they don't stick to the bottom, flipping them over multiple times, and once they get a golden brown, I'm going to pull them out and toss them on a wire rack. Just going to quickly pinch on a little bit more salt, and really I think these are coming out good, but I did notice that I wanted more black pepper flakes in the mix. I wanted these to be a little bit peppery. So I decided to crack on some more black pepper on the last few, fry them up, and while these are frying, I'm going to go ahead and toast some buns, shred some lettuce, and now let's put these together. The McChicken is simply just some mayo. I'm going to be using some vegan mayo. Top off the lettuce, and here we go. I realize these are thick, but you know what? They're still going to be good. So now let's see what Monica has to say.
It's good.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of tastes like a McChicken.
Mm-hmm. Let me get another bite.
Yeah, here are your thoughts, honest thoughts.
Yeah. So I love it. The flavor is really, really good. The bite, I mean, it tastes like a meaty, firm bite. I can tell it's tofu, but it definitely has the substance and feeling of chicken when I bite into it. I mean, it's a great substitute.
If they were a little thinner, you would have a better bite,
That makes
better
sense.
chew, you know.
That makes sense.
But even how they are, I mean, they're pretty delicious. I'm pretty happy with it.
No, these are great.
Last week we had the jackfruit chicken. How would you rate that?
I like that one better.
The jackfruit chicken's phenomenal.
I say go jackfruit chicken, but this is a good one too. I mean,
Tofu's way more accessible. I know I use some weird ingredients in this, so it's like if you can get the methylcellulose, you could probably get jackfruit. But I'm curious about what people think.
yeah, I want to know how many people rate tofu better and how many people rate jackfruit better.
That's a good, that's a good idea.
People are gonna people have, different textures that they love. Some people might like this texture better. Well, I love it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Tofu McChicken.